Smokehouse burgers using some Wagyu beef, bacon. We're going to bake up some homemade brioche buns and make some home fries and, of course, some crispy onion straws to go on it. So let's start by cooking up our bacon because we're actually going to cook our burgers in the bacon grease to add, just again, more delicious flavor because who doesn't love bacon? So we're going to actually cook up the whole pound, but I'm going to cut it right in half this way. And then that way we'll have these little like strips of bacon that will be perfect for going onto the burger versus leaving them in the full strips. And we'll get these broken apart so they can fry up in here. And I'm not one who's going to care too much about them being perfectly flat little, strips of bacon. They can be a little crazy because it's bacon. It's going to be good no matter what. And then when they're done crisping up, we'll remove them and we'll cook our burgers in that grease, which is going to add just this wonderful flavor to it and will be just absolutely delicious. Okay. Get all of this broken up. It's easier to do with my hands and then wash it than to try to pick it apart with tongs, I have found. There we go. And just make sure all of them are separated that way. They'll all kind of cook up at the same time and crisp up nicely. Okay. They're all apart now. I'm going to go wash my hands. And then we will get our bacon cooking and we're going to prep up our home fries to pop in the oven so that they can start baking up. And then we will work on our onions and bake up our brioche buns. So I've got those are big, 3 russet potatoes here. And we're going to kind of cut them up in French fry kind of shape here. So I'm just going to cut off the end on one side. That way I have a nice flat edge to work with. And I'm not going to I don't want my French fries too thick because I want them to get a good, crisp up on them. And we're going to do kind of like a battered steak fry, flavoring to it, which will be lovely. Now, if you don't like the skins, which my kids are not as big of a fan on, just take off some of those edges where you have them. And then the rest, you'll get the majority of those skins off. So just like that little thin piece. You can always cook it up if you want to, but if you don't, just toss it away. Okay. And the same here. I'm going to just first kind of cut just this little thing off. That way I also have a nice flat surface to kind of cut my potato or my French fry shape. I figured go with a classic shaped. A lot of times I'll do the chips or I'll do wedges, but a classic is always delicious. Here. And I will say now, a little bit of fries go a long way, like as in a sense of like a little bit of potatoes. These 3 potatoes are going to be more than enough to feed our whole group of things because there's just a little bit more hearty than, like your good old McDonald's French fries, which are much thinner and smaller fry. And then we're going to drizzle these with some olive oil, coat them up with a little bit of Lowry seasoning salt, black pepper, and some flour to give them a nice little, kind of almost a little batter texture to them. Try to make sure when you're cutting your French fries that you have them all roughly the same size so that they crisp up at the same time in the oven. Otherwise, you'll have some get soft and overcooked before others are cooked all the way through. And here we go. I think I'm going to cut these 2. They're a little fat still. Should be good. But these are going to be nice, long, good-sized French fries. Pop this in there. And then we're going to get our, well, this guy is like super fat. Try to get them again. You want them to be about the same size. Otherwise, they won't cook up evenly. We're going to put them in our big bowl here so we can toss them before we lay them out on our baking sheet. And if I find any that need a little trimming down, I'm just going to pull them out and slice them up. I've always thought about getting one of those French fry presses, but I always sit there and I'm like, this is a skill that really is done easy with a knife, that we're not making French fries for a mass crowd. So it's one of those kitchen utensil things that you want, but really doesn't serve a purpose. Okay. These are looking pretty good. Okay, let's get these guys prepped up on our baking sheet and in the oven. We're going to drizzle them with about a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons of olive oil, enough to coat everything. You don't want it glistening in there because you want them to crisp up but not be soggy. We're going to use Lowry seasoned salt. This is going to give you that steak fry flavor. We're going to use a good amount, so we're going to shake it over. It's going to give it a nice kind of reddish color. I'm probably going to use about, a teaspoon and a half. We're going to use some onion powder to give it some great flavor as well. I'm going to use about a tablespoon.
You have a question about the Halloween theme? Do the kids ever complain about the theme?
No, they don't. They're like me, full front. They love it. They love when I go and decorate and go all out crazy with all of our themes. They love it. And I fostered it from things. I think my kids really like it because I do for all the holidays, they get like crazy little like baskets. So like for St. Patrick's Day, they get a green cauldron full of like, gifts that are green or rainbow themed. And then we have blankets and decorations to match. Same thing with Halloween. They get these, the great pumpkin boxes that has a bunch of like Halloween themed gifts in there. Christmas, they don't get anything because they get Christmas presents. So it's not like a specialty type one. But Valentine's Day, we have these hearts that we stuff with stuff for them. So they, I think, love holidays because holidays mean treats and presents and fun and activities. And we try to do all sorts of crazy, like fun things as well. Okay, we're going to put in about a tablespoon of flour, maybe a little more depending on it. But we're going to mix all of this together, and you just want to make sure everything gets coated in there so that all of your little potatoes, fry wedges, whatever we want to call them here, are coated up. So really just mix them around. That flour and the oil, it kind of binds onto the potato and makes a nice little paste, which then when you bake them up is like almost like a battered steak fry. It's like the best way to make home fries, like in the oven, because unless you're deep frying them, you can't really get that really good crust on them. Okay, and we're going to put them out on our baking sheet. That way we have, and you want to make sure that each one has its own spot on here so that they'll crisp up nicely. Now, I don't put parchment paper down, which can sometimes cause them to stick a little bit, but I find that they crisp up a little bit nicer on the metal pan. Just conducts the heat a little bit higher.
And can you go over the seasonings one more time?
Yes. So we put in about like a tablespoon of olive oil. Then we did about a half a tablespoon of Lowry seasoned salt, about a tablespoon of onion powder, half a teaspoon of black pepper, and and then about a tablespoon to a tablespoon and a half of flour. And you just coat it all up. Has the great flavor to it. And then we're going to pop these in the oven. Since I'm going to be baking my brioche buns in the oven, we're going to be cooking these at 350. But for a nicer, even crispier one you can do and goes a little faster is like 425 on a convection bake or your air fryer setting. Okay. But we'll just have these cook a little bit longer at 350. Just again, make sure you have as much space between them as possible and try not to stack them, which is why I like my big sheet pan because it allows them to really spread out. Okay, let me get some tongs, toss this bacon, and then we are going to get these in the oven to cook. And then we're going to work on our onion rings or onion strings. So they're not really onion rings, but more like crispy onion straws. We got our bacon here. Get these guys in the oven. Bacon up. Move one little. Of course, I always get one on top of each other right here. So right now I have it at 350. If you were just going to do 350, they would take about like 30 or so minutes to kind of crisp up and get to that nice final thing where they're soft on the inside and crispiest. The potatoes, French fries are pretty hearty, so I don't need to set a timer because when I put the buns in, I'll have a timer set for that and they should be done around the same time. But let's get kind of going with our next part up here. Let's see, I'm trying to see exactly what I want to do. I think we might actually start cooking up our buns here in just a second. So I'll get them out, have them proofing in our oven here. So this is our brioche buns that are made with milk, yeast, a little bit of sugar, salt, flour, and melted butter. And we're going to brush them with a little egg wash mixture on them. And these will bake up at 350 for about 20 minutes. So we'll get that going. We'll get them baking that way. They have a chance to cool off just a little bit before we put our burger in them because you want them to steam off just a little bit. We're going to brush them with an egg wash mixture to give them that nice kind of golden brown color. So I put in about a teaspoon or so of egg in here. We're going to mix that together. And this is going to give it that classic brownish shine that is, indicative of a brioche or a challah or any of those fancy breads that have that shine to them. So we're going to just mix this up. There we go. And then we'll work on our onion straws. Let's get these guys kind of coated. I was deciding today I was almost going to do pretzel buns, but I'm like, oh, we've done pretzel buns kind of recently when we did like a pork tenderloin sandwich. So I was like, let's do brioche. I haven't made brioche in a while. And brioche hamburger buns, and they are delicious. It's a really light and kind of fluffy bun here. So while they look very big, they're actually really light.
Judy sent you again.
Well, thank you, Judy. We appreciate that.
And you have a question? Can your husband cook?
No. He cannot cook at all. His cooking is what we call Papa Bear meals, and they consist of whatever he can find in the refrigerator or pantry. So it's kind of like on the level of a charcuterie board. And I say that very, very generously when I say that. They're kind of pathetic, but he means well. Luckily, I'm not gone too much where the kids have to suffer through his meals. But when I was doing both my master's and my doctorate, and I was gone for good chunks of the day, I swear when I would get home from class and the kids would be like, "Oh, thank God you're home, Mama. We're so hungry." Just a little bit. There we go. And so I think they learned to appreciate my cooking, or lack thereof of his.
Yeah, can you go over the brioche recipe?
Yes. So let me brush this one, missed the spot. So with this, I started off with about 240 grams. I use a scale for this because it needs to be a little bit more exact. So 240 grams of warm milk. And then I added a tablespoon of yeast on that. And you just let that bloom for a good, 5 minutes until it gets foamy. We're going to bring and pop these in the oven. And so once that kind of foams up, then you're going to mix together 1 egg with about 4 tablespoons of melted butter. You whip those together, and then you need about, 50 grams of sugar and about a teaspoon of salt. And you mix all those together. You add all that to the liquid, and then you're going to mix in about 450 grams of flour into it, all-purpose flour, until you've got a dough that is kind of sticky, has a little bit of a tack to it, but very light. You don't want it to be too dense. Mix it all, knead it together for about 5 minutes, and then you let it rise for an hour, and then you're going to shape it. And set this for 20 minutes at 350. Then you shape it into your little buns, and you let it rise for another 30 minutes. So it is a longer recipe because you have 2 rise times to it. But that's what's going to make the buns so light and fluffy. The sugar in it is going to give it that nice kind of sweet flavor that is common with brioche, and the milk as well. So it's just a really kind of a sweeter, lighter bun, but so good. And you could also put sesame seeds on top if you wanted to, but we like to keep it just plain. Okay, got our bacon cooking here. Let's get our onions going, and then we'll get our patties going for it. So I've got, Costco has Wagyu ground beef, and it's pretty much the same cost as their regular ground beef. So to me, I'm like, why wouldn't you buy Wagyu? Because it's been delicious. I used a pack of it in our meatballs. We made Parmesan meatballs earlier this week, and they were so good. My oldest daughter was like, these are the best meatballs you've made yet, because they were just so tender. Okay, we're going to make our crispy onion straws. So I'm going to do 2 onions because these, again, are a favorite. These are a family favorite. Everybody loves them. They're what I use in my green bean casserole, or anytime Torin requests them. He just absolutely loves them. But they're not an onion ring. They're like a crispy onion straw. He always is like, oh, can you make onion rings? And I'm like, oh, onion rings are so much harder because it's getting that batter to stick onto that onion ring and not fall off. It's a little bit more tricky. So onion straws are nice because you don't have to do quite as much work. So I'm going to cut them in half, and then you're just going to do nice and thin slices of your onion. I don't want my onions too thick because I do want them when they fry up kind of cook all the way through and get crispy instead of being firm or juicy. So nice thin pieces of your onion, and you're going to want to use like a yellow onion, a sweet onion, or a Val Dahlia. Those are going to give you the best flavors. Yeah. And I will say 2 onions are going to give you a lot of onion straws. I'm going to flip this over, get my bacon starting to get nice and crispy here, and then we'll season up our patties to fry up in that bacon grease. Okay, get this next one going. And then we're essentially going to dredge these and batter them almost like you would if you were doing fish or chicken on there. And then we'll fry them off in batches in oil over like a medium heat. So they're actually not too difficult to make, but they are so, so good. So when I make my green bean casserole for my family at Thanksgiving, and I make a huge one, I actually did a turkey roaster pan full of green bean casserole, and I did 10 onions. So you just got to think, this is going to give me a whole sheet pan of fried onions. I did 10, so it was like 5 sheet pans, and that's because everybody eats them before you get a chance to make them. Let's get our dredge for it. I was going to say carrots, but these are not carrots for these onions. We're going to start with about 1.5 cups of, I'll do 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. And we're going to season this guy up, and then the second coating, we will add our panko breadcrumbs. We're going to do about a tablespoon of onion powder in here.
You have a question? Any tricks so that the onions don't burn your eyes when cutting?
I have found, and I know that they always say don't necessarily put your onions in your refrigerator, but I have found that when I keep them in my refrigerator, they don't make my eyes sting. The reason like they don't want you to keep them in your refrigerator is because they can go bad faster, but I go through an insane amount of onions every week that I don't think I have an onion last in my refrigerator for more than a week. We're going to add in about a tablespoon of garlic or garlic salt. Well, not quite, half a tablespoon of garlic salt. We're going to do a half a tablespoon of Lowry seasoned salt. So we're going to get kind of hit with both those saltinesses, but they'll complement each other. We're going to do about a teaspoon of black pepper. And then we're going to mix that up. So I'm going to grab a fork, and then I'm going to grab another bowl for my egg mixture here. And again, you can do some more spices in here, different types if you want, but I kind of like the nice, keeping it simple with just like the salt, pepper, and onion powder. But you can give it an Italian flair with some Italian seasoning. You can go Cajun if you throw in some Cajun seasoning or add some red pepper for a bit more of a kick. There we go. So just mix it up. And then I'm going to go through and we're going to kind of coat our first layer in this dredge. Now, I think it's easier just to sprinkle the flour over here in kind of a handfuls and do it that way to coat it up. And this will help you kind of break it apart. Then dipping back in there. Now, when we do the egg, we'll have to do the dip, but this works a little bit easier to bring them together. And you see how we're kind of coating them up with that, so they should all have this kind of nice dust over them. There we go. And this is going to allow that second layer to kind of bind on it. Now this is the one step that I do that is a little bit different than when I dredge like chicken or fish. I typically take it and put it into the bowl and do it a little bit separately here. I'll wash my hands real quick. Just get a little bit of this flour power off. And we are going to add in our olive oil over here to start heating up so that we can start cooking these off in batches. So with this, you're going to want a good amount because this is going to probably take me 3 different batches to fry up these. So I want to make sure I have enough olive oil to get through it. You can always add some more throughout the thing, but you'll just have to wait a little bit for it to heat back up again. I'm going to heat it over high, but once it gets nice and hot, I'll turn it to a medium and we'll actually fry the onions over a medium heat.
Can you use red onions instead?
Red onions, yes, I will always say, yes, you can. But when you cook red onions, they lose their flavor very, very quickly and they lose their texture. So they tend to get a little bit more mushy and they have less of that onion flavor, which is why I always like to use red onions just for like in salads, dips, eaten fresh. Those are red onions are meant to be like fresh versus a yellow onion or a sweet onion. So that's kind of got a little bit of my onion wrapper in here. There we go. So that's why I say you can. It's just not going to give you as much of that nice onion flavor. Okay, we're going to mix this up. Kind of coat, make sure you got all of those egg whites kind of mixed into your yolks there because you don't want any big snotty ones or you'll get kind of a soggy bit. And again, this is where I do it again a little bit different. It's a little bit messy, but I have found it is much easier to kind of pour this mixture over and coat it up for this second dredging than it is to kind of get in there. But you know, actually right before I pour it in there, because I know my hands are going to get dirty, I'm going to mix in my panko breadcrumbs into my dry mixture over here. So we're going to put about a cup of panko breadcrumbs, and I love a seasoned one. Gives you just a bit more flavor. This is going to give you a nicer crunch on your onion rings or onion straws, not onion rings. Get our bacon flipped because this is almost ready. Get this nice little sizzle up to it, and then we'll take them out. And then we'll have this nice bacon grease to fry our burgers in. Okay, we've got that ready now. Okay, so here's what I said is kind of there's a little onion wrapper, so I'm just going to grab that. Kind of a messy part, but makes it easier in the long run. We're just going to pour this egg mixture right over these. And then we're going to go in with our hands. We're going to make a mess, of course, but you're going to coat up your onions with this. The first coating of that dredge is going to kind of create a binder on these onions that will allow the second coating that we're about to dump over here, where it's going to allow it to kind of coat and stick on there. So they're all kind of coated. And I will say, you can do this in a bigger bowl if you want to, but I find that either a big cutting board or a baking sheet works well because you want to kind of be able to lay them out as flat as possible so that they're not just like a big mound. And then we're just going to kind of keep coating them until they've all kind of broken apart, but they'll have this nice batter on them.
You have a question. So will they taste like the Outback bloomin' onion?
They, I think, taste pretty darn close to it. Actually, I feel like you get a little less onion and more of the batter ratio to it or the crispiness. But pretty darn close. Because, you know, with the bloomin' onion, they give you big onion slices, or at least bigger than these. But yes, pretty darn close. So there we go. We've got it nice and kind of coated up. And these are great. And we're going to put them on our burger, but they're also just great to eat as well. Straight up, as I said, my family just loves these. Okay, these guys are ready. I'm going to move them over here so that we can start doing our dipping and frying once our our oil is hot. I'm going to get my hands washed up. Get the coat. And let's test our oil here. Again, I like to test my oil with a small little drop of water. It bubbles up nicely. So I'm going to turn it down to about a 4.5. And we're going to drop our onion straws in here. Beautiful. And then I'm going to use my tongs and kind of spread them around just a little bit. Perfect. And then we're going to crisp them up, and then we will flip them halfway through. So we're not just going to cook them on one side. We're going to flip them. That's going to allow them to get that nice crispy edge everywhere. I'm going to add just a couple little spots. I can add a bit more in. There we go. Okay, let's get a paper towel down and a plate for our bacon because that is almost done. And then we're going to shape up our burgers. I'm also going to grab a couple paper towels because when our onion straws are done cooking, we are going to place them on paper towels to absorb up the extra grease, which will allow them to get nice and crispy. So kind of same method with the bacon as you do with the onion straws, and it keeps them nice and crispy and not greasy. So I'm going to get this on my baking sheet over here that I have ready. There's a little extra one right here for the bacon. Okay, we're getting pretty close on this bacon. I don't like a chewier bacon. I like it nice and crispy, so it's just about there. I kind of know when I start to see a lot of white foam coming up, that kind of shows me the last of the liquid and the fat that's on the bacon is kind of mixing in. So these should be done fairly soon. Now, the trick is with bacon is you start your pan off hot and then you turn it down lower and lower so that it continues to cook without burning your bacon on there. But you need your pan hot to get that fat rendered down first. Okay, we've got 2 pounds of our Wagyu ground beef here. I can never get those little pull tabs open. So we're just going to slice off the top here. Now I got this from Costco, and it was the same cost essentially as their regular ground beef in the little packages, not their big, super huge bulk one, but the big bulk or the packages where you could get 4 packs for $28, so 4 pounds for $28, or the Wagyu was 3 pounds for $21, so essentially $7 a pound, which was, I would say, for Wagyu beef, seems like a steal. So of course, we're going to get that. Now, Wagyu is a higher fat content meat, which is why it's kind of nice and tender for it. But this one on the package, it says 75% fat, which is perfect for making burgers. So you want to have higher fat on a burger for it. Okay.
I have a question. Is there a significant difference in taste for the Wagyu?
I will say it's not like you're screaming and you're eating a whole different meat, but they are more tender, I will say. It was very, very, when we made the meatballs earlier this week, it was very tender. Okay, this bacon is looking perfect. It's got this nice golden brown kind of crispiness to it. So we are going to move them to our paper towels over here. Spread them out so that each piece has its chance to absorb up that grease that will allow it to stay nice and crispy. Now I do risk leaving the bacon by the cameraman, so hopefully we'll have enough to put on our burgers. It's very hot, so don't eat it yet. And then before I get my hands all into that, I'm going to get ready to kind of flip our ones. I'm going to see. They still need a little bit longer. The way I know when to flip our onion straws is when I start to see them get nice and golden brown. I can see I have a couple edges here that are getting a little bit brown. Once I see that throughout the whole pan, then we're going to know that they're ready. But don't rush your onion straws. Go a little bit lower and a little bit slower, and they will be perfect. Okay, let's get our meat ready to be seasoned up here. So I'm keeping it really, really simple. We're going to do a little bit of black pepper, about a half a teaspoon for this, so not much, but just a little bit. We're going to do a little drizzle of the Worcestershire sauce. It's going to help break down that fat in there and keep these burgers nice and juicy. But luckily with the Wagyu, you're going to get that anyways. We're going to use garlic salt. This is going to give it a salty flavor, but that extra garlic in it is just great. Good shake over. And then, since I want it to be a little bit of a smokehouse burger, a little smoky, we're going to use some liquid smoke. This is hickory liquid smoke. And I'm going to just pour it in my cap so I don't pour too much. But we want just about a half a teaspoon of this because it has a lot of flavor and it's really easy to over pour. So I always am trying to be careful with it. And now the best way to make these is to go straight in. But before I dive in, I'm just going to check my time because I don't want to be in there. Okay, that's 2 minutes, but I can always wait a minute on that one. So we're going to go in and smash this. I don't want to have to get up in the middle and wash my hands. But just kind of really work that meat all the way, those seasonings in it. And I will say, always season your ground beef because, a plain burger is just bland. You need a little bit. You don't need to go crazy, but just a little bit of spice can really add that flavor and just kind of make up for it. Now, I love to say when I'm making burgers that I am not grilling. I love to call them smash burgers because I always feel like they're super thin when I put them out, but they are not smash burgers. You know how it is ridiculous how thin you have to smash a burger down to actually be a smash burger because the meat always retracts. So you'll hear me call them a smash burger, but they're not. They're going to be a regular burger, but I always feel like they're nice and thin when I've smashed them down. But I'm going to divide this up into 8 patties because I have 8 buns, so they'll be about a 1/4 pound each. Now look at this. This was my first visual of dividing up into 8, and that's 6, guys. That's 6. So make it a little bit more even. You could get a scale out if you wanted to, but who does that? That's 7. So it's easier for me to kind of divide right here and then do it, other than if I start shaping up the patties and I'll get to it and I won't have enough towards the end. I will. Okay. So we'll form our little. Now you want to smash them down nice and thin, because meat, ground beef in this, because of the fat content, is going to retract in. So make them bigger than what your bun is going to be, because that is, they're going to shrink in. They're going to pull in a lot. So, and to do consider a smash burger, you essentially have to make them paper thin. So while I like to say that these are really thin, they're not, because they'll be a regular burger when you're done. Okay, we'll grab, once I get these shaped up and smashed down, we're gonna go grab, I'm gonna wash my hands. We'll grab our brioche buns out of the oven. And we'll come back and we'll flip our onion straws because they're just about there. Luckily, I put our brioche buns in for 20 minutes, but they can take up to 22 or so to get to right where you want them. And they'll have a nice kind of lovely brown coloring on them because that egg wash that we put over the top. There we go. Now, I will say the main difference between Wagyu and Wagyu ground beef and them is this meat is more soft feeling. It's not as dense or thick, I should say. It's much more malleable. Okay. My hands. I'm gonna wash this, dry them off. I can keep them here. I'm gonna turn this down really low so that we'll have time for when we come back. Beautiful. Look at our gorgeous buns here. You can see, I always say this one's always can see where the egg wash stops and the regular bun is, but they are looking beautiful. I'm gonna pop my French fries up, and then I'm gonna actually turn up the temperature a little bit. Let's do 400 so they can crisp up the last little bit. There we go. So look at our beautiful brioche buns. They're going to be soft and fluffy. You do need to let them sit for a few minutes before you cut into them. Otherwise, you'll snag them as you try to cut them. Beautiful. Okay. I'm going to flip our onion straws over here. You can see we've got this just gorgeous golden brown coloring on them.
Can you go over the onion straws?
Yes. So we have our 2 yellow onions that we sliced up nice and thin. Then we created a dredge using all-purpose flour, garlic salt, Lowry seasoned salt, black pepper, onion powder. Coated them all up, and then for our first one, then we mixed together whipped up 2 eggs, added them onto the dredged onions, and then we added about a cup of panko into the remaining dredge and put that back on for that second coating. And now we're frying them up until they're this lovely brown and crispy color, so that they will be delicious. Okay, we've got my bacon grease. I'm gonna let it just heat up a little bit, before we drop those burgers on, since I had it off because I didn't want it to smoke or continue to kind of burn those. While we are waiting for that to heat up and we can drop our burgers on, let's melt our butter because we're gonna make this kind of this barbecue aioli sauce that will kind of know it's there. It's be delicious. But where did I put my butter? Right here. So we're gonna melt about 2 tablespoons of butter in here. A little bit more. So we're gonna melt that up. I'm gonna put my back burner on. We'll do it kind of a little bit of a lower setting here. I'm gonna turn my onion straws up now that I'm back here and keep an eye on it. I think these are actually perfect and are ready to transfer. So So I'm going to bring my pan over here. And what you're going to do is you're going to want to use like a slotted spatula or spoon, or you can use tongs. I already lost one. There we go. But scoop it out. You don't want to take too much of that grease, so give it a good shake here. That way you have that to kind of fry in. And we're going to just put them over our paper towel. That's going to allow it to kind of soak up that remaining oil in there and leave them nice and crispy. If you just put them on a flat surface, they will get soggy on the bottom part of it. So, these guys all on here. I just want to make sure I have enough room for the next batches to go on there. Beautiful. Okay, so first batch of the onion straws are done. We're going to get our next batch in, and then I think our bacon grease should be hot enough to drop our first couple of patties in. Now, I will say, when I do the oil in the pan, I can get about 3 batches of onion straws fried in there before you need to switch out the oil, because you do have some little dredging droplings, I will say, that kind of fall to the bottom of your pan. And after about the 3rd fry through, they get a little bit too burnt. So you just need to switch out your oil. Now, that only happens if you have to make a huge amount of onion straws. So at Thanksgiving, I typically have to make a fairly good amount, which means I need to do another batch. Now, I typically do it in a really big pan for it, but have it. Our butter is almost melted here, but here are our nice, beautiful brioche buns. So light golden brown. These are our brioche hamburger buns. They're nice and soft. Yeah, I don't want to crush it too much, but I want to show you how soft and fluffy they are. Because with a hamburger bun, it's not like a basic dinner roll. It's a much lighter base to it, so you don't want to go too heavy on it. It's one of those doughs that when you work with, it actually is kind of sticky, and you feel like, oh, I need to add more flour. Don't add more flour, because then it will be too dense. Okay, let's get our burgers in, because my bacon grease is nice and hot here. We can slide. And that bacon grease is going to give this just a wonderful flavor to our patties. Now, berries are pretty thin, so they're going to cook up fairly quickly, which is wonderful. I'm going to slide this out of the way, and we can start slicing up some of our cheese to go on our burgers, because we'll be ready to serve up here, or at least our first batch, in just a second. I'm going to do, and we got to finish making our aioli. So before I slice our cheese, let's do that. I've got our 2 tablespoons of butter made. This is a really, really simple thing to make, so it's not too difficult on it. And then we'll get our home fries out of the oven. So with my 2 tablespoons of melted butter, we're going to mix in about, let's see how much mayo I have in here. I'm probably going to get a 1/3 cup of mayo in here to mix with that. There we go. We'll give it a good mix, and then we're going to add about a 1/3 to a 1/2 cup of barbecue sauce to mix in there. So things, and then some liquid smoke and onion powder. But you see our burgers, how much they've already shrunk in. They've already seized in. That's why I always say, even though they look thin, they're not going to be a smash burger, because you've got to go paper thin to get that. Okay. We've got our butter mixed into our mayo, because within an aioli, you need to have an added fat. And while mayo already has fat in it, you need a little bit more to give you that really velvety texture. Add in our barbecue sauce. Use whatever favorite one you love. I love a Sweet Baby Ray's, which is funny because I feel like growing up, you only ever had like Kraft barbecue sauce. That was like the barbecue sauce. But then I feel like the early 2000s is when they started to get a little bit bougier. And we're going to mix this until we've got a nice kind of smooth base to it. There we go. You can see it almost looks like a caramel, but it's going to have just so much flavor to it. We're going to add a little bit of liquid smoke and some onion powder in just a second. So it will just have this great smoky barbecue flavor to it. And those are looking good. Let's get our burgers flipped. Beautiful. I'm gonna go wash my hands. I just didn't want to drop them too much or they'd splatter. Okay. Let's get our liquid smoke. We're gonna do about a half a teaspoon. Again, a little goes a long way, and we have that liquid smoke already in the burgers to give it a little bit of flavor. And then a little bit of onion powder goes a little bit of savoriness. Now you can always add either like up to a tablespoon of brown sugar or some honey in it if you want it a little bit sweeter.
Can you go over what's in the sauce?
So the sauce, we have about 2 tablespoons of melted butter, about a 1/3 cup of mayo, and then around a half a cup of barbecue sauce, I would say, and then a half a teaspoon of liquid smoke and about a teaspoon of onion powder. Give it a little taste. Perfect. It's like a very mellow, smooth barbecue sauce because of that. But it's like a barbecue aioli. Okay. Our burgers are just about done here, so we're going to get these off in just a second, and we're going to get some cheese on them. We're going to use some Gouda because it's delicious, and this, I feel like a white cheese is going to go really well with our meal. Who doesn't love Gouda? Now with our pan, we'll take our cheese off and then we will add it on our plate to let it melt. Let me grab my cheese. So just gonna get a couple slices ready so that I'll be able to put them on right away. You can always use pre-sliced up cheese, but this way it will melt a little bit nicer because it's not as dried out as pre-sliced cheeses. Okay. And of course, these should be nice and juicy. Don't want to overcook them because they'll dry them out. We're cooking them in that baking grease, but if I break them open, they should still be nice and pink and have like a medium rare in the middle, just the way I like it. And then we're going to put our cheese over the top so that it can start to kind of melt on it. It's nice and thin, so it's going to melt a little bit faster. Get that nice and going. I'll get a couple more slices on. And then we're going to drop in our next burgers. And we'll go grab our home fries out of the oven because those should be just about done. And then we'll be able to kind of serve up here in just a second, at least our first round. There we go. And I find, this is my big frying pan is a 12-inch frying pan. And I find I can make 4 burgers in it because even though the patties look really big right now, they're going to seize in, and so they won't be able to retract. So they're not going to be as big as you think they're going to be. So again, I always say, make your burgers bigger than your bun, and then they'll be closer to the right size of your bun. Let's get our onion straws flipped over here. Got this nice kind of golden brown forming. Beautiful. And then we're going to go grab our home fries out of the oven. Beautiful. We'll be ready for first round. Okay, so we started our home fries at 350 and then I finished them up at 400. So they would be perfect and crispy and golden brown, but you could always do them at a higher temperature faster. But since we had those brioche buns, you wanted them to cook a little bit longer. But that nice kind of batter on them that we used with the olive oil, the flour, the seasoning salt is just going to add great flavor.
You have questions? How do you store the leftover onion straws?
There has never been leftover onion straws in this house. My kids will go and they will eat them and pick every little scrap off of there. Now, we are a family of 7, and then I always cook food for my parents, but I will tell you there will be no onion straws left over for my parents. Actually, they're probably not going to get any of this meal, so they're going to have, whatever else I make. Hypothetically, I would put them on a paper towel in an airtight container, and then when you reheat them in the oven on either the air fryer setting or 450, nice and hot for a few minutes to crisp them up, or you could also heat them on a dry skillet, but don't microwave them. Microwave them will make them soggy. Okay, let's see. I'm going to see where I want to build my sandwiches here, or things. I think we'll slide it and we'll do it right over here because we're quickly running out of room. You know what? Let's grab. And then let me flip my burgers before we get to the next round. You know when you're ready to flip them is when you see the brown ring forming up around the sides. That means you've got that whole first base cooked through. So you can see those edges. And then again, just going to gently guide it so I don't splash anybody with some of that delicious bacon grease. Let me go wash my hands real quick. And then let's serve up dinner. Okay. Let me see. Got to get our bread knife so we can get our bun. So let me pick out, which one's going to be a perfect one. This one looks good. So let's get our bun ready for our burger. But I will show you guys the inside, how soft and fluffy they are. They're just a really light and delicious bun. And again, made with yeast, but just perfect, squishy deliciousness. Okay. For dinner tonight, we have our Wagyu beef burgers, seasoned with garlic, salt, onion powder, a little bit of liquid smoke. We're going to top them with our crispy onion straws, some slices of bacon, build it on there, and then we will add a dollop of our barbecue aioli on there for our burgers. And then I put it right on there, hold it all together, tuck that bacon back in there for our delicious burger. And then as our sides, we have our homemade steak fries that we kind of battered with flour, olive oil, Lowry seasoned salt, and then of course some extra onion straws on the side because they are just absolutely delicious. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, kind of show you what we're making for our family and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page. So if you ever want to recreate any of our recipes at home, you can just go to our page and search for what we made. So we've got our Wagyu burgers with our Smokehouse Wagyu burgers with our brioche bun. And you guys can watch and cook along with me again. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront that has all of our different cooking gear and gadgets in it. So I have my Hexclad pans, my knives, my cutting boards, all the different things I use in the kitchen I have in there for you guys to check out. But again, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe.